everyone. I'm delighted to be with you today, and I'm excited because I'm doing an interview kind of off the cuff today because of some things that happened in my own life recently, and I just felt, we need to talk about this. This needs to be out there more. And so I'm really happy to welcome Scott Dunnett. Is that right, Scott?
It is, yeah.
Right? Okay, awesome. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Lana McAra. And I'm a best-selling, award-winning author of 43 books and with 1 million books sold. And I have been a TV host, a radio host, as well as being, in this forum on Zoom, for years. And before that, it was teleseminars. So just all that to say that I have been on personal development journey for 15 years. Deep work. I went through a divorce 13 years ago, but 2 years before the divorce, I was already on this journey. I guess that's why I ended up where I did. I got better. I'm a huge enabler, and I stopped that. So that is what really drew me to Scott and the workshop that he leads in Melbourne, Florida. It's live. It's actually in person. And that is, having done all of this work, I still felt like there were some strongholds in me that hadn't been broken through yet. And I didn't know how. I had done all the stuff. I am a hypnosis practitioner. I didn't just go to hypnosis. I went and learned it. And so this is deep work. It was for me, as somebody that was looking for an answer. And so I saw an interview just like this. I don't know if you know this, Scott, or not, but I saw you on a YouTube video and you disappeared. Hopefully that's not going to happen today.
With Paul, I remember that interview.
It was like 10 minutes. It was a long time. And I was, normally I would have just gone away and said, well, they're having technical difficulties, I'll come back later or something. But I hung around, Spirit just had me there. And I didn't even go and look at anything else on the internet. I just stayed there. And when that happened, I felt in my heart, this is something I need to hear. And checking in, to Spirit, I would say, well, should I move on? Nope, stay right there. And when I heard your heart, Scott, and I heard the kind of work that you're doing, and I'm going to ask you to talk about that in more detail in a minute, but I knew, it just went right in here. And I didn't even know where you were. I heard you talking about California. I thought, am I going to have to fly to California? And then I found out it's in Florida. I'm in Florida, so that was just amazing, the way God just stepped in, and did all that. So I just want to preface it with this, because I have a lot of friends, connections, contacts that have been also doing a lot of work for many years. But we all, talk about the fact that there's still some things that we need to get to. And so this workshop is not just for people like us who've been on the journey for a while. It's also for people who are right in the throes, their first touch of inner work. It covers the entire spectrum. So whoever you are listening today, keep on listening, because there's something here for you. You're here for a reason. So Scott, let's just start out with, how did you find this? How did you discover this particular method that you're doing now?
Well, thank you for having me and for taking time to do this today. I've been excited for a week, 10 days about doing it. So thank you. I, like you, was about 5 or 6 years into my sobriety, and 5 years into some talk therapy with a wonderful therapist. over here on the east coast of Florida in Merritt Island. And Janet and I got to a place where she could see that I was really, doing my very best to be as authentic and open and real as I could possibly be. And I was really stuck. I couldn't figure out how to tap into whatever these emotions were, whatever these feelings were that were in the way. And there were chunks of my life, mostly into my childhood, that just weren't accessible. I couldn't remember them. And I can remember the day because she was very tentative about broaching the subject with me. And she said it kind of like this: there's a strange man who's come to town from California, and he brought with him a very new way and a new approach to dealing with emotions. And I think he might be able to help rattle some things loose for you, and perhaps we can get past this barrier. Would you be willing to go down and do this work? I was like, yes, absolutely. And then by the time I was ready to go to the workshop, it had already entered into our community, right? So by the time I was able to break away from my corporate job at the time, my wife, 3 or 4 friends, a lot of people in the recovery rooms had already done the workshop. So when I got to go, there was probably 15 or 20 of my friends who had already done the work. I can remember going to the follow-up to my wife at the time's workshop, and literally listening to 3 or 4 people, and then one guy directly across the room from me, really talk about where I was, how I felt, what was going on inside of me. And in that moment, although I'd already committed, I knew I was in the right place. I felt inside somehow that this was going to be something that might be able to help. So I went, and it did. And I went back to therapy. And for the next 5 months, from September through the following February, Janet and I, Janet Helfand, that my therapist at the time, we whipped through all kinds of horror stories from my life that were actually rattled loose, right? Memories that came forward, and moments in time, both good and bad, that changed how I viewed a lot of the choices that I made, right? So we got to do a bunch of work on that. Around February of the following year, 92, Janet came to me and said, "You're good. Stay in the rooms, do your thing, have a great marriage. Away with you. You're healed," right? Mm-hmm. And I immediately called the man who led the workshop, and I said, "She says I'm well. I don't feel well. What should I do?" He said, "Well, Scott, you should come and sit in the dark. You should come back to workshop and help us put on the workshop for other people." I was like, well, that's really in line with my AA principles and the 12th step, and staying in service with people, and continuing to look at my own self and how I, tend to tie myself up, and, like we all do. And then that really resonated with me, and I began to go back. Now, I'll be honest with you, it was after that first time back in February, when I left that weekend, I knew that this was my mission, that I was supposed to do this workshop, whether it was sitting in the dark helping, whether it was co-leading, whether it was leading. I needed to know this work frontwards and backwards. I was pretty convinced that I was going to leave my corporate job and move into some kind of self-employment and change how I ran my life. All from an original workshop in September and a follow-up weekend with everyone sitting in the dark in February. I had restructured and reevaluated literally my whole life. And it wasn't from a place of everything is bad. It was a place of I made choices and decisions based on things that weren't true.
Don't we all?
Right.
That seems to be a common thread.
Well, and I think it's human, right? It's how we operate. It's how we learn. You know, we learn at a very young age that if we cry a certain cry, they'll change our diaper, and if we change that cry up, they'll feed us food, right? So we build upon that learning model for the rest of our life. You know, most of it's 0 to 5, right? But for the rest of our life, that's how we learn. We are building upon those stepping stones our whole life. Well, if you had trauma in that early period or shortly thereafter, well, then everything that you've learned since then has got a bias of your trauma in your choices. And it can't not. You didn't do anything wrong. But looking at those and reevaluating some of those core choices has not even been an option for most of us. And to know that we get to do that with every choice, you know, that we've ever made, it is sometimes even overwhelming for folks, knowing that they have that many options. You know, what am I going to be if I change how I've been? You know, how am I going to, that can be terrifying.
Yes. Yeah. Who am I now?
Right. And how do I know how to be without my story or without my past or without my connections to what I have identified as who I am? And those things were not true. Right. They were told to you by someone else. You chose them by default or as a survival. And none of those things can possibly be true decades later.
Absolutely. One of my biggest fears when I first started therapy, I think in 2010 or the end of 2009, beginning 2010, was I was afraid I would lose myself. If I let go of all these memories and the pain they have caused me, would I be like a boat without a rudder out there in the sea, tossed around? Yeah. It took a long time, a few years, before I realized, you know what, whoever's in here, this person is not going anywhere. Throw the crap overboard.
And then there's a certain permission to do that more than just once, right? You know, one of my dear friends is a singer-songwriter, and he's putting together a new CD, and one of the songs on it is New Levels, New Devils. I can't tell you how many times I've had someone at workshops say to me, I thought I'd already done this work. I've done years of work on this. And I agree. And you have, and I have. And when we go down that rabbit hole and we go down to a deeper level and a deeper level and a deeper level of how we operate, why we choose, how we choose, we're going to revisit all of those different things we've already looked at, because underneath those is more things we need to look at. Yeah. And with each new awareness, we gather not only awareness, but also empowerment and strength to go to go visit that deeper level, because the things that we find there are often not the fun things of life. Yeah. And the stronger we are, the more empowered we are, the more aware we are that we're going to find solutions and wonder and new choice in freedom in addressing those old traumas. When we realize that, when we understand that, there comes a time where that trepidation or fear of the next level becomes more of an excitement and a wonderment of what you will discover.
Yes.
And that is a joy, because I spent a lot of time afraid of the next level.
Oh, yeah.
Because it got a little spooky sometimes. But at this point, it really has become, an anticipation of discovery. And I know I'm going to find something,
Yeah. The relief is so tremendous after my mother had all these sayings. She was a real pill, but she had a lot of sayings. And she used to always say, it'll feel better when it quits hurting. And
that's so my grandmother.
Yeah, absolutely. So in my experience, just to kind of build on that, there were three things that I actually jotted down here in my notes, because I wanted to make sure we cover them.
Okay.
One of them is being able to access the trapped emotion that I had tried to dig for, but I couldn't get it there. I couldn't get there. And the exercises in the workshop just tapped in a way that nothing else had done. The effectiveness of it and the physicalness, not that it's strenuous, but just the fact that we were getting up out of the chair, sitting down, moving around a little bit, that kind of stuff really helped to get my engagement, feeling more than just sitting in back in a couch talking to a therapist. There's just not the same not the same amount of commitment. And one of the things I think that really was, in my experience, was the realness of it. And Spirit said to me, this is being so transparent now because this is my, a public persona meeting my real self. Spirit said to me, you will go in there without makeup. You are not a professional on the job right now. You are a human being who has been through crap, and you're here to get this work done. So leave the professional stuff that you always take to a public place, leave that behind, and just go in there and be Lana. That's it. And when I got in there and I started looking around, and I saw, that's what this place is about. It is about the reality of our human experience. We are in the trenches every day of our lives, and we put on this pretty face and dress up, and we go out and glad handing everyone and smiling. And I'm not saying that's exactly wrong, but there's a time and a place to just drop all that, come to the table, and do the work.
Yeah, it's you did that well, right, for yourself, and congratulations for doing that for you. And you did it really well, because in your intro I was like, wow, I didn't know you did all those cool things. That's really fantastic. And I remember some of it was qualified as you arrived, but you showing up with no makeup on is also your showing up. And this is the piece, I think, that I really want people who are coming to do the work, who have done the work, who are doing this kind of work in their life. You did that. You made those choices. You showed up. You came with your authentic self. You did the exercise all in full in to the best of your ability, so you could discover and explore your full self, right? The other piece is I'm so incredibly proud of this community that has grown up out of this work. There are just a multitude of committed, compassionate, loving people who show up month after month after month to create sacred space for people to come and do their deepest, most profound work. And like you said, everybody shows up and everybody finds a place to be. Whether your trauma is not like theirs, oh my goodness, or your trauma is so deep that it freaks people out. Everybody comes to the same place to do the same body of work, because the entire emotional body is represented over the course of the weekend. And lastly, I think the physical piece, right? We're not talking about it. We're not visualizing it. I'm a hypnotherapist as well, and studied NLP, and those are magical, beautiful tools. And there is nothing like experientially experiencing, doing, being with the stuff, as opposed to chatting about it, talking about it, writing about it, visualizing about it. Any of those things, when you step into those deeper feelings, those deeper emotions, it gives you an opportunity to stand in it and relive the moment. Triggers are tethers to our trauma. And the thing that people, I think, fail to realize is when you are triggered back to a trauma, you go back to that moment and you bring that moment forward to present time. What also happens there is you bring your emotional state, how you responded emotionally at that time, to this present time, and you respond from that emotional place, not from the varied options you have and the coping skills that you've created over the last 3 decades. No, you're responding like a 5-year-old who has no choice, no option, and is terrified. Except you're doing it as a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old, as a 60-year-old in your workplace, because someone said something to you that was unsettling. That's having yesterday invade today. And our dance is to create an environment where we can safely allow people to step back into that, take a breath for a moment, get their senses about them, and then realize that they have a multitude of choices. Let's pick one and see if it feels good. If it doesn't feel good, we'll pick another one until it feels good. There's so many options that we didn't have then that we have now. So I think it's a multitude of pieces that come together to create that special kind of both physical and tangible, touchable, mutable options in the emotional condition. So
yes. One of the things, and I heard this at the end, there's like a feedback time where people talked about what they got out of it. And I heard mentioned a few times that the customization, because you go in and it's a small group of people that are participating, but there's customization within the group. It's not just a group activity. Everyone has a customized time and customized focus, and the exercises are individually just molded to what that person needs right now. And I felt such a wonderful feeling of being helped and loved and addressed in the middle of this group of people. It was incredible to me how that all happened. One of the things too is the support. You know, you have this small group of people who are there to be helped. They're there for breakthroughs, some pretty big stuff. And then there's this crowd of witnesses that are there for support, sending love and energy, and volunteering to spend their entire weekend in that space just to help a stranger or a handful of strangers. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I'm very, very excited and proud of the group that have come together. You know, I was a part of that group ongoing back in the 90s. And that group, you know, back then grew to hundreds of people. And over the last couple of decades, you know, many of them have moved about and have left Florida and are, you know, moved on in their world, but they're still connected to the work. And when they're here, you know, they come through and visit with us. And as we recommitted to the process following COVID, I think there was a global traumatization of all of us. And I believe that added to folks being really willing to come and give of their time and give of their heart and their emotional energy and be present and really be in a room rooting for other human beings, like you said, that they really don't know it on a deep level, but know on a different level. Something happens in commitment, and when we definitely commit, there's a providence of benevolence that occurs when we fully show up in that commitment. I'm not talking the marriage commitments or the commitment to a job or a profession or a branding or any of those things. I'm talking about a really deep commitment to the emotional well-being of other people. That I am responsible when anyone anywhere reaches out for help. I want to be there, not to fix them, not to magic wand them to health, but to be with them on their journey. And that's all that really happens when the shadow people come back and sit in dark. They're coming back to be a witness, to do their work, and also to be that compassionate commitment, because it's reflected outwardly during the weekend to other people, but it's also a mirror of that commitment that they're finally making to their own selves. That the empowerment that comes from making that commitment changes people. And people want more when they realize, wow, just showing up and loving other people is changing me into who I wanted to be always. Then you show up for more because you're like, wow, this is such a simple thing, and yet when you step back from it, it's huge. It's huge.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know of any other place, and I've been a lot of places and a lot of meetings and a lot of stuff, right, for a lot of years, but I don't know of any other place where people are authentic. There's no spiritual bypassing. There's no, playing a game or trying to bluff or anything like that. It's absolute reality. But at the same time, when you are bearing your heart like that, in your vulnerability, you can connect with people at a very basic, real level that you're not going to find a lot of places. All these spiritual conferences out there where everybody's walking around, you know, glad handing everybody else. That's not what this is. It's real. It's real. And I think we can all use a healthy dose of reality. Might not be comfortable all the time.
Right. Right.
Need it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the most authentic places that I have ever experienced. And it is one of the places, it used to be the only place, but it's, you know, one of the places where I get to be my most authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
I'm free to be 100% me, and know that in my wonder, in my foibles, I'm going to be fully and completely accepted and loved. And that happens every single time. And every single time there's a different group of people, right? It's never, ever the same group of people. And what becomes the framework, the structure, is the willingness of those people who come back month after month, or come back even for their first time. It's their willingness to follow a couple of very, very simple instructions on holding sacred space.
Yeah.
And it's because sacred space was held for them that they're so willing to commit to that creation for others. And in that sacred space, magic happens. You know, one of the things that I say to the group, you know, when we first get there Friday night, I give some instruction to the people who are participating. And then I take my team outside and we check in before we begin the weekend as a group, right? And there's a couple of processes that I take them through that helps them to get there and be present and be there now. But we always close that circle with this statement: we are a group of ordinary people creating an extraordinary atmosphere for magic to come and play in. Don't miss the magic. Right. And then we do a group hug, and then we go in and we begin the weekend. And that we do every single time. The process that we follow is exactly the same every single time. Every single thing that happens in every workshop is different every single time. Right. So there's those constants that create safe space, that create sacredness, and that create a process, a format. And those things stay the same. What changes is what everyone brings, who is there to receive that and reflect that back, becomes different and beautiful and changeable and mutable every single weekend.
Well, it's just amazing. What that means is that the fluidity of the process moves with the needs of the group, which makes it so wonderful for each individual who attends. Yeah.
Well, I think it addresses some of the things that you mentioned earlier, the how it fits so specifically, how there's moments where you're in the weekend and you're like, you know, somehow this moment was created just for you. And you're right, it was. And it was very on purpose. It was very intentional. and the flow of the process is about moving you to and through that rabbit hole, right?
Mm-hmm.
What you acquire from that, well, liken it to Joseph Campbell's, diving into the belly of the beast. All that we do at the way through is guide you through that journey, right? So the warrior's journey of into the belly of the beast, which is us, right? And then we battle the demons, which is our past and our history and our trauma. And we overcome them. And as a result of that, we become different and new and changed. And then coming out of that experience, we re-enter the world as a new entity, and therefore change the environment, the world around us as we move forward. That's the hero's journey. And I believe that this work is specifically designed to choreograph an opportunity for each person to have their unique flow through their stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and allow them to acquire and pick up and understand and discover what they're capable of taking in, right? We always push. We always throw a few things out there that folks might want to take a look at, and it's their choice to move towards them. Our job is to really bring folks through that maze and just offer, as many opportunities for discovery and enlightenment and awareness and choice that they can, so that the most possible empowerment and freedom is available, at the end.
At the end, right. One of the things that was a concern to me when I saw the hours, because we're going to give the website address in just a minute, but the workshop goes late on Friday night and Saturday night. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event, and Friday night, Saturday night goes late. And when I saw that, I just had this image. I think I told you this before, that I had this image of, one of these mind control places where they lock you in, don't let you go to the bathroom, and you can't eat. Oh, that's nothing to do with this place. We took breaks. We actually went outside and took a break and had a dinner break to go get some lunch at the restaurant or whatever. It wasn't it wasn't that lock you in a room for 12 hours straight kind of a deal at all. It's okay.
Not a Tony Robbins experience.
Yes, exactly. I was worried because I get tired. I'm intense. I have intense focus, and then I get physically tired. I need to go outside. I need to breathe some air once in a while.
So I'll be honest with you. Part of the process, is about that long Saturday, right? And tired helps. It does. It how many of us have been like super tired and then had a horrible night's sleep, and you wake up in the morning and you're an emotional wreck? Well, I do that at least once or twice a month. Right?
Yeah.
To this day. Okay.
Yeah.
So we know that when we are tired, when we are exhausted, when we have carried this stuff for years and years and years and decades, that we become tired more quickly, that our level of exhaustion is arrived at much earlier in the game than it used to be. And the biggest thing that people tell me after workshop is I have all this energy, right? So if you're using a whole lot of energy every single day, every single moment of every day, holding in the stuff, right, then there's very little energy left for life. And that's how most people show up, right? So along about halfway through Saturday, folks are tired. We've worked a little bit late on Friday night. They come back in the morning. We stir stuff up. So, they didn't necessarily sleep really well. So now they're halfway through Saturday. The option for them to be in their head, to use the old denials, to use the old arguments about why I can't do this, kind of fall to the wayside. And it's not about breaking people down or, I've had other people say it's just like a military thing where you yell and scream at me until I do what you say. It's like, no, it's not boot camp. It's not endurance either. Like you said, there's plenty of breaks. There's potty breaks and smoke breaks, and there's snacks on the table, and there's plenty of protein available throughout the entire weekend, right? Nobody's brain is getting mushed, but that starting to get tired of carrying it around does tend to show up as a theme regularly. It's like, why have I been carrying this around? And then I think a lot of what people, I have two responses that we get at that follow-up that you alluded to at the beginning. One is, I've had a spiritual experience. I now know God. It's like, awesome. The other one is, I have so much energy. I didn't know I had this much energy. When is this going to stop? Right? So I believe that the energy comes from not having to hold it down anymore. Right? Or another metaphor, not have to carry it around anymore. Right? You've offloaded it. Or you're not holding all of those secrets and all of that stuff down anymore, so that it doesn't come out on somebody, right? You've worked through it, released it, let it go, done work, and filled back up with the things that you want to be filled with.
Yeah.
I think that's why it's different.
Yes, absolutely. The fact that we were there late didn't even occur to me. We were so in the moment. We went out and had dinner, at early, like 4:00 or something. And then we came back, settled in, and it never occurred to me what time it was. We were just in the work, being there for each other.
Yes.
It wasn't just about, me or, my thing. I was concerned for the other participants and wanting to be there and present for them as well, because that group of people, we have bonded. We are in touch with each other every single day. It's been one of the greatest things to support and feel the love vibes keeping on going on, that heart connection of, I see you on your journey. I understand where you are and I'm pulling for you. If there's anything I can do, let me know, kind of relationship, which is phenomenal.
It's amazing, epic, I think, to me, how close and tight a bond can be created in 3 short days, approximately 32 hours, literally 32 hours. And I'm still in touch with 4 people from my workshop that I did in 1991.
Wow.
Right? And there's leaders and co-leaders and assistants that were in the room for your weekend that have been doing this work, supporting this work, sharing this work for 3 decades.
Wow.
Right. So it becomes a little bit more, it becomes bigger. You know, now that I know the depth and breadth of your experience, I'll probably be reaching back to you to get some guidance on the book that we're writing about the work.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And that's been an incredibly profound, eye-opening experience. And I'll share with you just one of the unique pieces that I found in putting together this compilation piece. So Art did automatic writing with his guides, with his higher self, and it was very private. It was just him and his guide, whose name is Matthew. And Art didn't tell anybody he was having these conversations for years.
Wow.
So there was years worth of these conversations that Art had written down, because it was an automatic. He would write a question, close his eyes, calm himself, go into a meditative state, and then wait for his hand to just start answering the question. It's a pretty common practice today, but back then it was very new. It was a very unique process. Well, it's really cool when you get the questions your mentor, your teacher, was asking his higher self for guidance on. Right? So love relationships. How do I quit smoking? How do I quit eating chili dogs? How do I be more authentic? Every question you can possibly think of on a very practical, physical level, and then on a very cosmic, metaphysical level. So it's this beautiful compilation of his personal relationship with his guide. And then I've asked his daughter, his second wife, and his probably most devout student to write long pieces. And then I asked assistants from back then and from now to write just smaller pieces, right? What did the workshop mean to you? What did you get from it? What was your experience? Well, Art's stuff was really cool and powerful to see how your teacher thought. And it was wonderful to hear from his daughter and his wife and his devout student. But to hear people over 3 decades with Art as one of the facilitators, myself, Margie, and another woman, Marty, who taught down south, and everybody's observations, this is what I got from the weekend, was the same.
Wow.
Right? So there were these incredibly powerful consistencies through each group, no matter who the leader was, what decade they were doing their work. I got this, I got this, I got empowerment, I got freedom, I got inspiration, I got unstuck, I got all of these amazing, and that was and still is the most powerful piece of doing this book that I've experienced thus far. Is Art is amazing. He was a fantastic teacher. He just was a beautiful teacher. And Marty and Margie and myself, we all do beautiful, good work, and we're heartfelt, and we're dedicated and committed and compassionate. And it doesn't matter, because the work stands alone. If you follow the format, amazing, beautifully magical things will occur. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm teaching other people how to do it, because I know other people can do it if they simply follow the format.
Right.
and be fully committed to trusting the process, magic will happen every time. And it never doesn't happen.
Wow.
In 35 years, it never has not happened. Isn't that amazing?
Shows you that you're spirit guided. There's divine guidance here. And this work is raising the vibration of the planet. There's just no way it can't be, because when one person is changed, an entire family is elevated.
Yeah.
And however that looks, but yes, absolutely. Wow, our time is already gone. So tell me, or tell everybody about the website, when is the next, what's the date of the next workshop? I know this is going to be ongoing. This date is for.
So May 24th, no, let me get with it here. 26, 27, and 28. And then, as I mentioned earlier, on June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, we're doing leadership. So anybody who has already done a workshop, I lead a workshop about once every 4 or 5 years, and I teach people how to do the work. Everybody is going to do every piece and part, including the lead facilitator part, because I want everybody to understand that you have the vision. As long as you're working from the format, your personal magic, your personal gifts, your personal empowerment will give you the vision you need to help your brother or sister move through whatever they're dancing with, right? Mm-hmm. And then at the end of June, I believe it's the 23rd, 24th, and 25th, we have another workshop. So that's our next 3 events. You can find us at www.thewaythroughexperience.com.
And I will put that wherever the words are. I'm planning to put this all over the place.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Well, Scott, is there any final words you would like to leave with us? Anything you'd like to?
Well, I close every weekend with the same writing from a woman by the name of Louise Hay. And I want to take just a split second and talk about how important her entire body of work is to the process and the format that we follow for this weekend. And the piece that I read, simply talks about family and how, how I'm welcoming the people who are sitting in front of me to our family, and how amazing our family is, and how we show up for each other, and how we're authentic, and how we're real, and how we don't measure by the same sticks as society does, but that by being our authentic self, we really give permission for everyone else to. And I think the last thing is when we do this work, it's not just our family that unravels trauma. It ripples through our ancestors. It ripples through what's to come, out to our grandchildren, and into the future. So whether you do this work, whether you do talk therapy, whatever you do, if you do Tony, whatever you're going to do, go all in and do it all the way, because what you're doing is making a difference in the world. And I just wish you luck and joy and wonder in your ride. And if you want to come play with us, come hang out in Melbourne, because it's amazing. It's amazing.
Melbourne, Florida. Yep, it's great. It's a great place. It's right there on the beach. Wonderful place. Yeah.
And plan an extra day, because walk on the beach after is good. Absolutely.
Scott, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
We will talk soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Be well.
Bye.